March 26, 2020 special meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer. Mr. Alcoffer here?
You'll have to unmute to say here, please.
Mr. Ansello?
Yep, here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we
Yes.
got you, Frank.
Here.
Mr. Ansello is here. Ms. Barnhart?
Here.
Ms. Barnhart is here. Mr. Broth?
Here.
Mr. Broth is here. Mr. Baines?
Here.
Mr. Baines is here. Ms. Boyce?
Here.
Ms. Boyce is here. Mr. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Brew is here. President Carbone?
Here.
President Carbone is here. Mr. Delahanty?
Here.
Mr. Delahanty is here. Ms. DeFlorio?
Here.
Ms. DeFlorio is here. Mr. Dondorfer?
Here.
Mr. Dondorfer is here. Mr. Felder?
Here.
Mr. Felder is here. Mr. Flagler Mitchell? Mr. Flagler Mitchell? Ms. Hassman?
Here.
Mr. Hebert?
Here.
Mr. Keofet-Lassie?
Here.
Ms. Lamar?
Here.
Ms. Lamar is here. Mr. Mafucci?
Here.
Mr. Mafucci is here. Mr. Marionetti?
Here.
Mr. Marionetti is here. Mr. Morelli?
Here.
Mr. Morelli is here. Ms. Roman?
Here.
Ms. Roman is here. Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Smith is here. Ms. Taylor?
Here.
Ms. Taylor is here. Mr. Turp?
Here.
Mr. Turp is here. Mr. Wilcox?
Here.
Mr. Wilcox is here. Mr. Wilt?
Here.
Mr. Wilt is here. Mr. Udelson?
Here.
Mr. Udelson is here. Mr. Zale? Mr. Flagler Mitchell?
He said he's on his way.
Okay,
So
Right.
calling in now.
great. And then I'll recall Mr. Zale.
We will need to suspend the rules of the legislature for the purpose of prohibiting public in-person attendance and waiving the public forum in accordance with Executive Order 202.1, issued by Governor Andrew M. Cuomo on March 12, 2020. You have a motion on your tablets, which is moved by Legislator Brew and seconded by Legislator Zale. This is a non-debatable motion. Roll call vote, please, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Mr. Felder?
Yes.
Mr. Felder votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Alcoffer votes yes. Mr. Ansello?
Yes.
Mr. Ansello votes yes. Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart votes yes. Mr. Broth?
Yes.
Mr. Broth votes yes. Mr. Baines?
Yes.
Mr. Baines votes yes. Ms. Boyce?
Yes.
Ms. Boyce votes yes. Mr. Delahanty?
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer?
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell? Ms. Hassman?
Yes.
Ms. Hassman votes yes. Mr. Hebert?
Yes.
Mr. Hebert votes yes. Mr. Keough-Lassie.
Yes.
Mr. Keough-Lassie votes yes. Ms. Lamar.
Yes.
Ms. Lamar votes yes. Mr. Mafucci.
Yes.
Mr. Mafucci votes yes. Mr. Marionetti.
Yes.
Mr. Marionetti votes yes. Mr. Morelli.
Yes.
Mr. Morelli votes yes. Ms. Roman.
Yes.
Ms. Roman votes yes. Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor votes yes. Mr. Turp.
Yes.
Mr. Turp votes yes. Mr. Wilcox.
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox votes yes. Mr. Wilt.
Yes.
Mr. Wilt votes yes. Mr. Udelson.
Yes.
Mr. Udelson votes yes. Mr. Zale.
Yes. And my apologies for being late.
Mr. Zale votes yes and will be noted as present. President Carbone.
Here, yes.
President Carbone votes yes.
too, Ernie Flagler.
Legislature, would you like to cast a vote on the motion?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules. Thank you. Legislator Flagler Mitchell votes yes. 28-0, motion to suspend the rules passes.
Please join me in a moment of silent prayer. Please keep in your thoughts our first responders, those working in the medical community, and everyone who is supporting the community response to COVID-19. Majority Leader Steve Brew and his wife Marge will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I called this special meeting of the legislature pursuant to the authority vested in me as president of the Monroe County Legislature by Section C29C1 of the County Charter and Section 545-5 of the Rules of the Legislature of the County of Monroe. This meeting has been closed to the public, and all legislators are participating via teleconference in accordance with Executive Order 202.1. In keeping with the legislature's tradition of openness, the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube through the legislature's official channel. Everyone participating via teleconference will please mute their phones except to obtain the floor or cast a vote. If seeking to obtain the floor, please simply state your name and wait for me to call on you before proceeding with your question or statement. We will now proceed with the consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 20-0136, confirming appointment of Elections Commissioner Lisa Polito Nicolay.
Moved by
This is
legislator Brew,
Brew, and I move that, Mr. President.
seconded by legislator Zale. This is a motion to adopt. This appointment is to fill the remainder of the term previously held by Doug French, who left office on February 3rd. I think I speak for this entire body in saying that we are all grateful for the service of Commissioner French to the Board of Elections. His knowledge and experience helped guide the board through a number of changes through the years. I have declared this to be a matter of urgency due to the current uncertainty in the future of elections across the state. There are ongoing discussions about moving back the April 28th presidential primary and special elections. A number of polling sites and poll workers have backed out due to COVID-19 concerns, and the potential for increased or statewide vote by mail is increasing by the day. Given the numerous changes being considered and the fact that the Monroe County Republican Committee has made its recommendations and filed the necessary certificate of party recommendation last week, I felt it was appropriate to address this matter urgently through a special meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Mr. Felder.
Yes.
Mr. Felder votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer. Mr. Alcoffer. Mr. Ansello.
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart.
Yes.
Mr. Broth.
Yes.
Mr. Baines.
Yes.
Ms. Boyce.
Yes.
Boyce votes yes. Mr. Delahanty.
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer.
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Yeah.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell votes yes. Ms. Hassman.
Yes.
Ms. Hassman votes yes. Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
Mr. Hebert votes yes. Mr. Keofet Lacy.
Yes.
Mr. Keofet Lassie votes yes. Ms. Lamar.
Yes.
Ms. Lamar votes yes. Mr. Mafucci.
Yes.
Mr. Mafucci votes yes. Mr. Marionetti.
Yes.
Mr. Marionetti votes yes. Mr. Morelli.
Yes.
Mr. Morelli votes yes. Ms. Roman.
Yes.
Ms. Roman votes yes. Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor votes yes. Mr. Turp.
Yes.
Mr. Turp votes yes. Mr. Wilcox.
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox votes yes. Mr. Wilt.
Yes.
Mr. Wilt votes yes. Mr. Udelson.
Yes.
Mr. Udelson votes yes. Mr. Zale.
Yes.
Mr. Zale votes yes. President Carbone.
Yes.
President Carbone votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer.
Yes.
Mr. Alcoffer votes yes. 28-0. Motion passes.
Thank you. There being no unfinished business, Legislator Brew.
This honorable body stands adjourned until April 14th, 2020.